Hello, hello. I can see a Lume Plotter on my screen.
Yes. Sadly, we're not face-to-face today. We're doing this virtually. As you might know, we do live an hour and a half away from each other. So it's not often or not always possible to
record
meet face-to-face.
In person.
But we still at least have the screens going, and that's nice. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. And good to see you too. So let's not do the mistake. Let's not make the mistake again like last time.
Yes.
Let's say, what are you wearing?
We keep forgetting. We keep forgetting what we're wearing. So why don't you go first? I see something glistening over there. Some monstrosity, a huge monstrosity.
It's yes, I am wearing my Panerai Radiomir Black Seal base logo. It's the PAM 00380 with the non-hacking movement. I think it's an OP for Officine Panerai, whatever, and a lot of Roman numerals behind it. I have no idea what number it is, but it's based on the ETA 6498 or 97. It's a nice hand-wound movement.
How big is this one?
That's a 45 millimeters.
For some reason, your wrists, it does not look that big at all.
But yeah, I was very scared of actually. I thought, no, that can't be for me. I mean, I looked at the 47 millimeters ones, and that's even bigger. But since they're very, very small, and this cushion case, actually, it just doesn't wear that bad.
No, it's the lugs itself. It has very small lugs. They're wired.
Yeah, very
they're
short.
Welded lugs or whatever.
Yeah, wire lugs.
So they're super wire lugs. Yeah. What's the bracelet size on that, or the strap size?
26, I think. 26 or 27 millimeters. I don't know if it says it. How many? What's this? Yeah, no, it doesn't say that. I think it's 26 or 27. Wide. Yeah, it's a pretty wide. But it's a strap monster, right? We saw it because this is the black dial. It's lovely. It came with a very, like a honey-colored one. I have black crocodile leather one. If I want to dress the watch up, right? I mean, if it's a bit more festive. And then this, oiled leather, darker brown leather. It's a lovely, rugged feel. And these straps are so comfortable. This is a bit like, you can't believe how comfortable a Panerai is on the wrist until you put one on the wrist. And that's...
I've tried, and it just doesn't work for me. Obviously, I have smaller wrists, so I can't pull it off.
But now you have 38, 40, and 42 in the lineup.
Yeah, but once again, they're not the originals.
That is true. Bugs me. That is true. When people advised me, said like, okay, don't go for the newer ones, go for the old one. I don't even know, this has a screwed case back. The newer ones have clip-on case backs and 100 meters of water resistant.
No, the new ones have 30.
Yeah, 30 and 50, right? And you think, come on.
Yeah.
A submersible, not submersible, what's it called? The Luminor with the extra crown guard and crown protector. And 50 meters.
With 30 meters. 30.
30. That's
so
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Give us at least 100, Panerai. Come on, you can do it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I have 100 in my Cartier Santos.
And my Luminor, that's 300 meters. The Luminor that I had. I sold it to a friend with the option to get it back whenever he gets bored of it. So let's see. Nice. I want it back eventually. So what are you wearing?
So I'm wearing my Rolex Submariner 114060, the no date variant. This is the previous generation, the 40 millimeter size ceramic bezel.
Very nice, yeah. This is the maxi case, or is it called super case?
Maxi case, yes.
Maxi case, yeah.
No, technically, if we want to be real.
Okay.
Maxi dial super case.
Okay.
So, super case is for the size of the case itself. Maxi dial is for the size of the lume plots on the dial itself. So, as I mentioned to you, I think previously, the reason the Kermit is so sought after is because it had a maxi dial in a non-super case.
Oh, right.
So, small case, maxi dial, and it looked really good.
Okay.
That's why a lot of people like that one.
Yeah. So actually, I heard a lot of people are saying for the normal Submariner, called normal, the one with date, saying that's my sub, and leave it at that. But if you have a sub without the date, you're saying it's a sub no date. But actually, that is the original or the Submariner.
Correct.
The Submariner. The Submariner in Rolex on the Rolex owns website says Submariner date for the one with date. And the Submariner without date is just the Submariner. So
exactly. So, do you want the original or the the updated one?
Yeah.
And of course, once again, with the original Submariner date, which I think was the 1680, right, was the first one, if memory serves. They made fun of it. People made fun of it. They said, why would you need a date window? Why would you need Cyclops? That was the origin of the desk diver.
Yes.
And this was highly popularized by Comex, who, of course, were the commercial French divers.
Yeah.
The no dates were given to the people that actually dove, and the date versions were given to the people working in the office. So desk divers.
Yeah.
Super cool.
I definitely am in this category of a desk diver. And in any case, I'm happy that you have no dates, because then you're happy, right?
Exactly. And this is going to bring us into what we're talking about today. So the topic for today is, when we buy watches, what concerns do we have? What are some of our rules, restrictions, that we try to personally abide by when we buy new watches? So that's the fun question to answer today.
Okay.
So, Rolf, what goes through your head when you're considering a new watch? When we have, a world of watches with a cajillion watch options out there, obviously you are not considering every single one. So mentally, you are immediately knocking out 90% of the available watches in the world.
Yeah.
Subconsciously.
Absolutely.
Right? So what are those requirements that you use to knock these out so that you don't consider them?
Yeah. So there's first of all, watches that are smaller than 36 millimeters definitely are not in my wheelhouse. Also, watches.
So maybe we should do this as a back and forth instead of, because when you mention size, I can chime in with my sizing restrictions as well, so that we don't have to revisit size again, right?
All right.
So go ahead with size, and then I'll answer.
Size minimum 36 depends. Actually, that's the exception. It would be actually more on a 38 millimeters to maximum 45.
Okay. But once again, it's not that simple.
No, it's not that simple. It can be, for example, this Panerai 45 millimeters wears pretty small. Theoretically, and there can be watches with 45 that are too big for me, because the lug to lug is too big, or they just are very tall and it just looks big. So that's just one of the, just my little rules, right? Should be in that level, range.
So for me, I would say 36 on the lower end as well. I agree with you entirely on that. I've tried 34 millimeter OPs, and they were fine. Would I wear it on a day-to-day basis? Probably not. And once again, we have to say that my Explorer is technically 35 point something, right? It's not a true 36. So it's slightly smaller, but it's still, I love it. It's wearable. Now, just yesterday, I don't know if you were paying attention in the watch news, but Warden Wound had found a back stock of new old stock military issue Hamilton khakis from the 80s. So 40-year-old watches, brand new. Once again, new old stock from some military surplus store, box papers, everything, full set.
Wow.
And they had 100 of them.
Nice.
Sold them for $600 a piece, which is awesome because it's the same price as the regular modern variation, right? Of the Hamilton khaki, mechanical, manual wind.
Wow.
33 millimeters in size.
33?
33. I was about to click the buy now. Luckily, it's sold out. But I was thinking like, oh, this is so awesome. What other chance do you get to buy a new old stock, vintage 40-year-old military watch?
Yeah, true.
However, once again, that 33 millimeters, that's way too small. That's vintage 33. So, once again, Rolex tends to bump up there. 36 millimeter Rolex wears larger.
Yeah, like
33 would not be
like the Daytona, which is actually more like a 38 millimeter case, just because of the
they call it a 40.
And the things. It's a 40 millimeters, or they consider it a 40 millimeters, But you're
Same
wearing
with
a Submariner, right now.
40 millimeters, yeah, exactly. So I've done the measurements. I have my calipers at home. I tend to measure everything. So the reason I like the Submariner, and it is one of my, I would say, the largest watch I own. Even though my Speedmaster is 42, it's 42 because of the case.
Yeah.
Because of the pushers. So it's not actually a 42, it's actually a 40. This one is an actual 40 millimeter watch. But the thing is, the bezel is so large that the dial is the same size, the actual glass portion is the same size as my 36 millimeter Datejust. Okay. So the proportions of it are the same. You just have a nice little bezel around it, which makes the watch then again wear smaller.
Yeah.
So going back to size, as I said, 36 millimeter minimum for me, upper limit, I would say 40 to 42. Some exceptions can be made there. However, a 42 millimeter all dial with no bezel around it would wear enormous on me. So it has to have that other thing there, of how big can the bezel be, how big can the dial be, as well as lug to lug is a big consideration for me. So when we talk size, to me, it's not just diameter, it's lug to lug as well as lug width. I do not go above a 20 millimeter lug width because it just looks too big on my wrist. So
this is for when we say that as advice for people starting their watch collection, it's a very tough one to advise on. I feel because it's we don't know your wrist. For example, my wrist. I have a friend who has the exact same size wrist, but his wrist is round. Mine is more flat. So that means while we can swap each other's watches and they fit, they still look different on our wrists, right? So, and this is really something that only experience will tell you. That's why I always advocate to go to meetups and maybe some, red bar events or other watch groups and clubs that you might have in person and just try things. Just put them on your wrist or go to the boutiques or retail shops and just try them on and see what you like. Take a picture, ideally maybe in the mirror if that's possible, just from a bit of a distance, so you have
so this is one thing that I want to mention as well. You can take a picture top down of your wrist and it will look ridiculous. Generally most watches will look large. However, if you take a full length mirror, hold your hand up 90 degrees, so perpendicular to your body, and just look at it like that, then you see the whole wrist and how the watch looks on you. So that's one of the things that I learned recently.
And you and I, we are both a bit in photography. We know the same thing. For example, if you use your iPhone or your Android phone, whatever, and you take a picture of your watch and you frame it inside your display, that it fills out, like half the display. And you take this with a 0.5, the wide angle lens. And then you do the same with a 1x and with a 2x zoom, right? And you try to have exact the same picture or the size of the watch in the frame. But you, of course, move your camera or your phone further away if you're taking the zoom. With the 2x zoom, you get a good idea of how it looks in real world. But if you have this wide angle zoom and you're going pretty close to your wrist, the watch looks ridiculously big. And if you take these three pictures and you look at them next to each other, you realize, okay, on one side, the watch looks perfectly fine. On the other side, it looks completely too big, right? Because of the effect of the fisheye effect that you have with the lens. If you're too close on it, the barrel effect that you have. There's a lot of optical descriptions of why that happens. But yeah, that's exactly why your recommendation is very good. Just look at it in the mirror from a bit of a distance, hold it onto your chest, and then you see how this watch looks on you, how other people would see it.
It goes beyond this. The other thing that I recommend for someone who is starting up is you'll find a watch that you like. You'll like it a lot. For me, that watch was my Datejust. I loved the size. I loved everything about it. And I knew the next watch I wanted it to be a similar size.
Yeah.
So I measure. Once again, I don't look at other people's measurements. Generally, I will measure lug to lug.
Mm-hmm.
I already know lug width. I will measure the dial size. No one talks about dial size. How big the dial is without any bezel or anything else.
How much this watch appears,
and then you take this and then you find a watch that fits within these these measurements. And for me, once again, I like the Datejust.
Mm-hmm.
I found my Grand Seiko SBGW231. It fit within a millimeter of every single one of those requirements.
Oh, right.
So, and I bought that watch blind. I couldn't find one in person. I've never tried one on before. I had to buy it, pre-order from Japan, and it arrived, and it fit exactly how I thought it would.
Nice.
So with enough research, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my one thing that I did go wrong with is I do like smaller 36, 38 millimeter watches.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a Longines sector dial, Heritage sector dial.
Yeah, lovely watch. Yeah.
It is. And it's a 38 millimeter watch, so they say. Lug to lug 47 roughly. But the thing was, it's silver dial and there's no bezel.
Yeah. Correct.
And that you don't often see. Mm-hmm. So when you see a 38 millimeter watch and the dial itself was 36 millimeters.
Yeah.
It was so much silver. It was so big, so open that it looked ridiculous, in my opinion, on me.
Right.
Because when you look at my Submariner, this one has a 30 millimeter dial.
Yeah.
So this Longines was a smaller watch, but with a 6 millimeter larger dial, and that's huge.
Yeah. When I tried this watch, because I like these tuxedo and these sector dials.
Yeah.
I actually was surprised of how big a 38 millimeter watch wears, because usually 38 millimeters, I'm already thinking it's probably not for me, right? Exceptions, but that's something that I learned also many years, right? I think especially younger watch collectors and people who just start in the hobby always go big.
Yeah,
way too big than you should.
I think smaller watches are a more acquired taste.
Yeah, I think
as you get older.
Yes, exactly. And no, older also you just get more experienced with watches, right? In general. I see this.
Less is more.
Yeah, I see this very often when people start with watch collecting. They say, like, I want this 44 or 45 millimeter Breitling. And you think, looking at your wrist, I think you should go maximum 42. And they say, no, I want the 44 version. I want a big, chunky, luxury watch on my wrist. And you think, okay, well, if just try both, right? And I have seen this very often also in watch forums where people are posting and saying, like, does that look good on me? What do you guys think? When one, of course, it always depends on the photo and how it's taken, the photograph. And the second is sometimes people feel, because they have worn these big, let's say, Casio G-Shocks and all of this stuff, which have big measurements. But as you know, they are smaller displays, right? The digital displays are not necessarily very big. Often it's quite small. So they appear a bit smaller. And when you then, as you said, one with a big dial, it can be appear much bigger, even though it's a smaller case size. So this is a couple of these rules. Do you have any rules for, let's say, the strap or the bracelet?
So as I said, I have a lug width restriction.
Yeah.
I do not go above 20 millimeters. I learned this as well on my Pelagos 39, which was a 21 millimeter lug width. I felt it was too thick on my wrist. So once again, I do have smaller wrists, and the bracelet being wider. I learned this as well with the Pelagos FXD, 22 millimeters. It takes up too much real estate on my wrist. It doesn't look right.
May I ask you a question?
And also,
where they're on your wrist, do you wear your watches below or above
behind
this,
the bone?
This bone thingy?
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, this knuckle thingy. What is it? It's not a knuckle.
The wrist bone that sticks out. We do have this in front of, some people wear it in front of, some people wear it behind, right?
Exactly. So
I'm behind.
Behind as in away from your hand.
Exactly, away from my hand. I want it spaced behind.
For me, I wear it in front of it. So between the bone and my hand.
Really?
I wear it very close to my hand, my watches, because they don't fit behind it. It will, for my shape of my wrist is in a way that I can't make it stick. Every time I put my hand down, it will slowly make its way down there in any case. So I rather make it a bit smaller and then keep it there. For me, it's way more comfortable to wear it. Yeah. Between
my
the
issue
bone.
with that is the crown. If I move my hand up, the crown gets caught on my.
It does, especially now with my Panerai. It does actually, when I'm putting my hand up, it does push a bit into the back of my wrist. But I somehow still like it better than the other way. But it's also important when for comfort, right? When you choose your watch.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, I like taper. So I do not like bracelets that don't taper, or straps for that matter. I want usually a 3 to 4 millimeter taper. So going from 20 to 16 or 19 to 15. That's my general. I don't like chunky straps. I want them to be svelte and streamlined and vintagey.
I think that's also something that experience tells you eventually, because I was the opposite. I thought, no, I want a big chunky strap, and if it's 22 millimeters, it can go 20 millimeters all around my wrist. But it's definitely less comfortable. Definitely way less comfortable to have that.
The thicker the strap, the less comfortable the watch, generally speaking. If you're the very simple way to think about it is in terms of NATO straps.
Yeah,
at what point would a NATO strap would be on, because they don't taper, right? So at what point on the bottom end, how much thickness would it be possible for you to wear, right? And for me, 22 was already too much.
Yeah.
And that was
22 works just about for me. But I also feel even the Panerai here, it goes from 26 and tapers nicely down to, I think it's 18.
Yeah.
But it has a big pin buckle.
Chunky clasp.
But that's the way, right? That's how they are. But it wears super comfortable. But in general, absolutely right. I also think tapering is very important. You have some bracelets from IWC, for example, the
Omega,
the Mark 20,
Seamaster,
and what was the other one? I think it's the new. Is it the new Engineer? Does it taper? I don't know. But then you feel definitely, it looks bigger on your wrist and less comfortable.
It increases the size of the watch, and that could be good. That could be bad. It depends on who you are and what you want,
what you like,
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So, sorry, I interrupted you there. You were talking about general. So you're just saying taper?
No, that was it.
Taper, okay.
So taper
and 21,
and 20 maximum. So that's it. For straps, I'm fairly easygoing. In my collection right now, I have only 19 and 20 millimeter. Nothing else. And I've kind of refined that is the size that I like.
Okay.
So I get to of course, share straps between watches, which is also nice.
All right. Let's come to materials. Is there anything in materials that you would not have?
Very, very interesting. So stainless, check. Titanium, check. Bronze, I like. Gold, of course. Platinum, sure. The only question mark in my lineup would be ceramic.
Right.
I think ceramic, while it has the property of not scratching, can be fragile if dropped, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So there's horror stories of people dropping ceramic watches and then the case just cracks.
Yeah.
And that kind of is, of course, a maybe, I would say. Would I entertain a Ceratanium IWC? Perhaps. The one that I would say absolutely no, get the hell out, would be the sapphire cases that people like Hublot have been making. I don't need a sapphire case. I'm good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a couple of producers, Richard Mille, Hublot, some Artia, and some other manufacturers that do that. It can look cool on some people, but also not for me. For me, it's just like I liked titanium.
I love titanium. I love it.
In the beginning,
the color.
It's very odd because you feel like the heavier the watch, the more solid, the more you feel like you got your money worth for it, right? It's like, or if you ever put, like the IWC engineer, the old engineer that we picked up, that solid gold one, that was so heavy.
It was literally half a kilo.
Yeah. And
at least.
And I thought the first time I saw a platinum Daytona, I thought somebody was pulling a prank on me. I tried to take this watch from the table, and it was so heavy, and I thought, is there a magnet somewhere? Is this connected with a rubber band? And what's going on? It's amazing materials, and then you think the more you pay, the heavier it gets, unless it's titanium. Then it's more expensive but light. So and that you have to like that, right? Because like my Pelagos 39 in titanium is a very light watch, but I love it. But in the beginning, I would probably feel, a beginning of my collecting journey, I would have probably felt, no, I want something heavy. I want something solid. I want something that I feel on my wrist, really, that's chunky and just robust, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, so for me, and I have a ceramic watch. I have my Blancpain 50 Fathoms Bathyscaphe. That's a ceramic case.
Correct.
Yeah. And yes, while it's the benefit of a ceramic case is it will not scratch whatsoever. It will not change the color. It will stay exactly like it is, even after 30 years.
The reason this is so important, not changing color, is because most other watches that are colored are done PVD coatings. So it's some kind of core with a coating on top, which eventually over time will wear away.
Yes.
And then revealing another cut. So usually Tag Heuer is known to do this. They will have black watches. They're not black ceramic, they're black PVD. That black wears away and you see the silver underneath.
Or when you scratch it bronze, very deep, you get the
So meanwhile with ceramic, this never would happen.
Yeah, so that's really nice about it. So it will this watch, if cared for and not dropped, because as you said, it can shatter. It doesn't in everyday life, if you're not really and I have banged it on doorknobs and stuff, it survived all of that. But it can be a drop from just a table height on a marble floor or something, and that could be the end of the watch, right? It case can shatter, and that's very expensive to replace, unfortunately. I checked for my watch, and they said, the price for my watch is, I don't know, 40,000 dirhams, something around this, 44, 45, something like that. The case itself, if they have to replace it, is 16 or 17,000. That's a lot. So that's half the price of the watch.
It's half the price.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that hurts. That hurts. So thankfully, I have seen shattered cases on the internet. I haven't spoken to anybody who had a problem with the ceramic watch. And of course, there are certain ways of ceramic. I think in the Swatch group, they have the biggest experience with ceramic stuff. Maybe LVMH as well with Zenith and Hublot. They have a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
They use a lot of different materials. They have a lot of expertise there. But Rado, I think, was the first one that ever used a ceramic case. And they use the ceramic for many, many decades now. So they have really good experience in that, in different colors and all of this stuff. Really, I think they have mastered that. And that is, of course, in Omega has a lot of beautiful
it's IWC.
watches.
When you say ceramic, I think IWC and the Top Gun line.
Not like the white side of the moon, the gray side of the moon, the black side of the moon.
No, it's always the Ceratanium. No, Top Gun. For sure. That's the first watch that comes to my mind when we think ceramic.
Okay. So
I don't know why, but that's for me. I know they're not the preeminent ceramic case manufacturer, but that's who I associate with.
Yeah, they do lovely cases. I mean, I still think these pilot watches was the blue one. I think it was for
the blue, the sand,
the
Mojave.
One that they had is the Mark 18, I think, in blue. Oh, I love that. But is there any, now coming to colors, are there any colors you would not consider?
Is this dial color or is this case color?
Both.
So generally speaking, one material, by the way, which we forgot to mention was carbon fiber.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Which also, I don't know if I would get a carbon fiber watch. I think just stick to the original.
Okay. So, for
traditional.
Me, with the materials, I don't know if I actually mentioned that. For me, steel is, of course, usually the preference, but I don't mind titanium, ceramic, plastic, or carbon fiber.
Yeah, plastic. We forgot about plastic as well. We didn't mention.
We could use Swatch's name for
rubber from G-Shock.
Bioceramic.
Yeah. So once again, the rubber for the G-Shocks as well, I'm okay with. So I think I wouldn't discriminate. If it was the right watch, I wouldn't discriminate based on material, unless it was sapphire or carbon fiber. In those cases, I would probably say no thanks.
You would wear yellow gold watches?
Oh, absolutely. It would have, I think someday down the line, I'm going to get a yellow gold day. Champagne dial, we mentioned this before.
We had a Dubai auction for Christie's, right? And they had, I think, 3 day dates, 36 millimeters in yellow gold, solid gold. I think all 3 of them didn't sell. I'm not 100% sure. They were about $10,000 plus whatever dubious fees that they charge.
25%.
Seller fee, buyer fee, and so on and so on. But one of them was an oyster quartz day date in solid gold. And I thought, wow, now that's a watch for an insider, right? This is like...
It is. It's a ticking Rolex.
That is cool. Yes, exactly.
So it's the one that I caught my eye, there was one that was a silver dial, which is weird because you usually don't have yellow gold with a silver dial.
Yes.
But the dial had aged, and they called it banana in color. So it got yellow, and it looked awesome.
This is the one thing. That's the one thing I think only Rolex has, right? That defects, right? Make things more desirable, like the what is it, the spider dial when the lacquer dial cracks,
cracking,
and you have like a spider web on it from the cracks, and this is then something that people collect. In every other watch brand, you would say like, oh my god, throw it away.
What is this condition of this? Yeah, correct. Yeah. So anyway, all right, but going back to color though.
Yeah.
I have no color basically in my watch collection. Black and silver. And then I have 2 opaline. Or not opaline, sorry. 2 cream, whatever you eggshell, ecru colors. The Grand Seikos are ecru. My Cartier, my JLC are opaline, silverish, whitish, and then everything else is black. My Datejust is silver as well, actually. But once again, it shows you I have zero variety. I do not like color. I think color is kind of a fleeting passion, something that you like for a hot second, then it dissipates. So I try to stay away from it. The one color that I would be okay with is blue. Yeah. And it would have to be like a dark navy blue. However, I haven't found the right watch in that area yet. Yeah. So I've had a couple of them. They've always been sold over time. They haven't stood around.
Yeah, for me, that's a good point because I'm a sucker for blue. I just love blue dialed watches, and I have had, I think, in at one stage in my collection, it was just black dial, blue dial, mostly blue, and I have. When I started watch collecting, I had a couple of these Orient divers, which, by the way, these Orient divers,
the Orient Star,
not the Star is but it's the same brand, but the Star versions are the more expensive ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So for me, it was just Orient because more affordable.
The plain ones.
Yeah. But they had beautiful blue sunburst dials and all of this stuff that I loved. But I bought the same watch in 3 different colors, in black dial and blue dial and in yellow. And strangely enough, my wife was like, wow, this yellow watch with the rubber strap looks super cool. And it was the one that I liked the least, but she loved to see it on me. Right. So I wore it a few times. A good friend of mine has a lovely Glastüte Original 70s, the square one, with a very intense yellow dial. And my wife once saw him driving past in his car and didn't see his face, but saw the watch on his wrist on the steering wheel and knew that it was him because of the yellow dial. So it's interesting. But for me, I think colors. I have blue. I like blue. I like black. I like white. And I don't have enough white. I should have more white ones, or opaline or silver dial watches. And
I don't like white. I don't like pure white. I think it's too clinical. It's like a refrigerator. It needs to be either
if
off-white.
It has texture, for example. If you have a nice
snowflake
texture or snowflake, this works.
I'm okay with that. Once again, plain white, which is to me the like a Datejust with a white dial. It's too clinical. I don't like it.
Yeah. I think
the contrasting lettering, the black lettering that they put is too much.
Yeah. If it has sometimes if you have like porcelain or enamel dials, they can look very, very nice and shiny, and it works, right? Yeah. So in general, I'm trying to keep an open mind. But then looking at my watch collection, then it's a clear.
You have a burgundy. Moser.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's also something I wouldn't have considered usually. But once you see it in person, you think like, oh my God, this is nice. These Fumi dials, right?
So my issue was with the shirts. When I'm wearing my dress shirts every day, when I have a colorful dial, it always seems to clash with the shirt that I'm wearing.
Sure, that's definitely,
and that's an issue.
Definitely, the Moser is one watch that you have to think about what you're wearing.
Yeah,
because that can be horrible. I mean, like today, I'm in a very orange T-shirt. That burgundy would probably look weird on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes that's usually most of my watches I can just plonk it on. It doesn't matter what I'm wearing. But with some of them, you have to consider saying, oh yeah, maybe you shouldn't do that. That looks weird.
Exactly.
Today. So other than that, what else do we have?
So black,
automatic,
by the way,
automatic.
Before we get there, I want to say black dial, I sometimes feel, it doesn't go fully perfectly with what I'm wearing. But the one watch that I've never, ever second guessed was silver dial. I feel silver dial
super
goes
neutral.
with everything. Yeah. So for the future collectors out there, the budding enthusiasts, silver dial is very safe.
If you have a very small collection, silver is very safe.
It's a very good one.
Though I think
next question.
I think movement wise, automatic, manual, quartz.
So for me, I'm either automatic or manual. I prefer manual. I love interacting with my watches and winding them. Even the automatic ones, I still manually wind. So I'm all for winding a watch. I do not fully I don't like quartz. Specifically, I don't like analog quartz watches. I'm okay with digital quartz watches. So G-Shocks and Casios, I'm okay with. But as soon as it starts ticking, I'm not okay with that. I
like quartz. I started, of course, with quartz, Citizen, Echo Drive, these kind of things. And then
Me too. I had one.
Yeah. Then eventually, of course, you get into mechanical watches, automatic watches, and it's a different world. And then you actually think, oh, quartz is so much worse, right? It's has so little soul, and it's not really like my little Tamagotchi that I have to keep alive on my watch, right? For all the older people who still know what a Tamagotchi is. Otherwise, Google it. It's interesting.
My daughter just got one.
Really? They still exist?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They just reissued them, apparently. They just came out again. Cool. So same original Tamagotchis, but they just reintroduced them again.
Nice.
So 100 dirhams.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Still as annoying as always.
Yeah.
With the beeping and everything. Okay, but go on.
Okay. So from a quartz perspective, I think high accuracy quartz has a different story there. Grand Seiko has reinvigorated that for me. When you have a quartz watch that is has the stepper motor that actually does 2 little steps, right? That you see when you take a slow motion video of your watch, you can see that it's actually doing 2 ticks instead of 1 for each second, and it keeps time. The Grand Seiko 9F movements, they have an accuracy of plus minus 10 seconds a year, and if you have a star on the dial, with some limited editions do have that, then they have an accuracy of plus minus 5 seconds a year. And then you have the Citizen or the Chronomaster line. They have a new movement that is Echo Drive, so solar powered, and plus minus 1 second a year. So I find this absolutely fascinating. Of course, you have like watches like your iPhone or so that automatically syncs itself to nuclear time and atomic clocks.
Yeah.
But that is considered cheating, right? These watches have an intrinsic accuracy of plus minus 1 second a year. And I find this absolutely fascinating. This is, you can wear this watch for 20 years, 2 decades, and it will be maximum, in worst case, 20 seconds off, not even half a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
For 20 years. I find
so this... let's go back. Okay, would I entertain?
Yeah. Hey, there's an FP Jaune quartz. You can even buy FP Jaune quartz switches.
I would, in my list of things that I would want, you mentioned oyster quartzes. 100%. I think oyster quartzes are one of these things that you could pick up now for a bargain, and 10 years down the line, I think it's going to be a very, very hard to find, sought after piece. The other ones, the Grand Seiko 9F movements, as well as the spring drive, I do consider spring drive as quartz. I'm okay with that as well. So in essence, if we're recommending something, one thing that I have noticed while trying to sell things on the Bizzle or Facebook Marketplace, most of my watches, once again, are mechanical wind. And the question I get asked, is it an automatic? Mm-hmm. And I have to explain it. No, it's mechanical. So it needs a battery. No, it's hand wind. And the people have no idea what that means, it seems, right? So I think that a lot of these guys that are starting out newly, forget automatic. Generally, hand wind is a great place to start. You mechanically have to interact with your watch on a daily basis. And that gives you a very strong appreciation of what it is that you're wearing. And
it forces you to interact with your watch, right?
Exactly.
Every other day or so, or depending what kind of watch you have. You can have IWCs or other watches with 8-day power reserves, so that are not automatic. So I find it then quite interesting to see power reserve indicators on the watch, especially if it's manual wound. Right, so that you
manual wind. Okay, well, we'll get to this.
Yeah,
let's ignore this.
Story.
This will be the next step. But we'll talk complications.
Yeah, exactly.
So we could skip to that.
And then we're giving advice for collectors or collectors that are actually starting in a bit as well. Once we go through our complications of what we like at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of touched on a few things already, but we'll sum it up at the end. What we would recommend, right? All right. So. Next, complications. Are there complications that you have to have, complications that you don't like, and complications that you would never even touch?
I think there are some complications that I find very useless, personally. I like date windows, so that means a simple calendar or a full calendar is good for me. Just explaining the 4 different versions of calendars. There's a simple calendar, which is it just counts every 24 hours, 1 day up until it reaches 31. It cannot differentiate between months with 30 or 31 days. So you have 5 times a year where you have to actually adjust the date. A full calendar does the same thing, just it shows in addition the day of the week and also the months, but you still have to adjust it 5 times a year. And then you have the half perpetual calendar, which is a bit of a weird thing. That is it always counts 28 days for February, and it doesn't know the 29th of February. So that means every 4 years you have to set it. And then you have it's a very rare complication. Not many watches have that, because usually you go directly to the perpetual.
The annual calendar?
Yes.
Yeah, so your Rolex has it.
The annual calendar? No.
Your Rolex is an annual calendar.
Yes. Does it do the 28th?
Yes, it does. But it doesn't do the February.
I didn't check that actually, if it does the 28th.
It does.
Yeah.
It is an annual calendar.
So, yeah. And then you have the perpetual calendar. And that's usually shouldn't need any interaction if the watch is continuously running until the year 2100. With one exception, there's also some watchmakers who have managed to figure out a way to put more information into the gears so that they don't need any interaction until the year 2499. You know, the famous IWC advertisements like, our watch doesn't need
what is a smartwatch?
Our watch doesn't need any upgrades until 2499. That's pretty cool. Anyhow, so these are the calendar complications. I love calendars. I like moon phases on watches. I find this very romantic to know where the moon is. Not that it means anything to me, but it's just
because you can look up.
Yeah. Or you have an app for that now, right? So for moon phases, if you really want to know. But I find this is a very sweet. It's just, I don't know why I romanticize the moon phase, but I like it. I like a day and night indicator on a watch. Also, of course, you don't need that. I love GMT complications. I have, I think, a disproportionate amount of GMT watches or dual time watches in my collection. I don't mind chronographs. It's not necessarily something I particularly aim for, but I have chronograph watches in my collection. And then the most useless I think complications that I see are these grand complications, mostly like sonneries, small and grand sonneries and minute repeaters. I just don't. I totally respect and appreciate the watchmaking that goes into it, and I really admire these pieces, these timepieces that have that. I just personally don't feel the need to have this. I mean, this is for everybody. This is showing or displaying the watch audio-wise. With a push of a button, it will just make a different series of chimes and gongs and tell you the time based on this without you to have you to need to look at the watch. And the equation of time. You know, we talked about this in one episode before, I think. Equation of time is also the difference of how long a day is during a year, because that varies 15 minutes, plus minus 15 minutes roughly during the year. So actually the Earth wobbles a bit, and some days are shorter than others. It doesn't affect us. We are not adjusting the time for it, but you have some watches that show the difference, that the day is actually 15 minutes shorter than the other one is 15 minutes longer at the other end of the year. Yeah, great. But what does it change? Nobody needs to know, right? It doesn't make any difference. I don't feel, I feel like also maybe romanticized. It's nice to have, right? It's an interesting bit of information on a watch dial, but yeah, it's useless. And I think, so now I basically rattled down every
complication known
to mankind. But what I don't like, let's say that's easier. I don't like sonneries and chiming stuff. It's not for me. Complicated chronographs I also appreciate, like Rattrapante, dual
And
time and lap times and all of these things.
Splits.
Triple splits. My goodness, that's amazing. But
only one person has done it, which is how long is on it.
Yeah. Fantastic stuff, but not really something I'm striving for. Yeah. So
I
that's
agree.
It. What is it for you? You don't even like the date.
Simple watches. I hate date windows. I make one exception, which is for the Datejust, because it's such an iconic piece. I feel like I want a Cyclops in my collection, and that kind of ticks that box. Everything else is simple, no date. I have one chronograph, which is the moon watch, of course. I think that, is a historically, horologically significant watch. It happens to be a chronograph. Has nothing to do with it. I rarely use it. And then I think my favorite complication, I should say, is a GMT as well. Yeah. So we agree on that. Of course, I have a date window on my GMT because it's necessary to know what day you're traveling. And this is, of course, the not the caller GMT, but the travel time GMT, where you are changing your home time, your local time as opposed to your travel time, or local time as opposed to your home time. Yeah. So your home time stays the same, and when you're traveling around, you're setting your hour hand, and then that will have an effect on the date.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's kind of it. I agree with everything else you said. Yeah. I don't need anything super complicated. Would I like an annual or a perpetual calendar? I think yes.
Yeah.
I think that is one thing that I would entertain. But beyond that, I have no need for Rattrapante's split-second chronographs, or for that matter, any type of sounding mechanism, chiming mechanism.
Yeah, I think for the GMT, coming back to the GMT, I have both. I have a caller GMT and the true or traveler GMT watches, and I was always in.
So quickly, the difference between the two, once again, in a caller GMT, the idea is that you are tracking a second time zone while being somewhere else. So you're at home, but you're tracking a second time zone.
So usually that means that you can quick set the 24-hour hand.
Yeah, which is where you're trying to check, right?
Yeah. While the Traveler GMT, or the True GMT, is a watch where you have usually an independent hour hand. You have the 24-hour hand that stays on your home time. When you travel, you arrive somewhere, you pull the watch out to the first stop, you change the hour to the local time.
And it jumps.
And it jumps from hour to hour. So you don't actually stop the watch. It's just adjust the hour hand and the date forwards or backwards. And then that's that. So now we have talked a lot about what we like. So you know what we like.
One last concern.
All right. Yeah.
Money. Do you have a maximum budget? Or has it changed over time?
So has that changed over time? I guess 100% has changed crazily. In the beginning of my watch collecting journey, I thought spending like $500 or something for a watch is already like, man, that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
To spend on a watch. Because for me, Swatch was just perfectly fine, right? Even though I had people, that I knew, other people in university or so, that would wear, let's say, a Breitling or something. I just never thought that's something particularly impressive, right? And for me, it didn't do anything. I was like, it's a watch, right? Seiko is just fine, whatever. But once I started with the watch collecting, I started to collect cheaper watches, obviously, right? Like the Orients, Seikos, Citizens, Swatches, and all of the stuff. But over time, I think you get a bit more desensitized to watches. The more you read about them, and the more you have access to them, or the more you have disposable income in your career, and then you feel watches. You appreciate the higher end watches, and then you get there, and then there is no limit, right? Back in 2000,
there's no upper limit with watches.
No, and that's when you go see, of course, there's a natural limit for what I can spend on a watch. I could sell all my watches in my collection, and I have a bit too many. I should reduce it a bit.
Yeah.
And then trade it up. Let's say if I sell everything I want and I have, and then buy a very expensive Patek Philippe Nautilus, it's totally possible. I could do that. But then I have this one watch only. And would that give me the same amount of pleasure than having a broader watch collection? I don't know. And that's a different story. Also, as an advice for people, more is not always better. For some people, having a 1 watch or 3 watch or 5 watch collection is the perfect size. Some people love to have 20 watches or 50 watches. We know people who have 70 watches or more, right? Yeah. And they love the variety. They just want to have a watch for any opportunity or any event. And they just love collecting, right? It's a bit like hoarding. Sometimes people just love to have and own these pieces, even if they are not wearing them. They're still happy if they see them in their collection. But that's also very individual. Do you want more watches, or just a few little exclusive pieces that are carefully curated and carefully chosen? I call my watch collection often the opportunistic mess, right? Because a lot of times I see a watch maybe on an auction, like a Breguet. I saw a Breguet Type 20 once for auction, and it was a very good deal. So I bid on it and I got it. Was the Breguet Type 20 on my radar ever to own this watch? No. It was just an opportunistic moment to say like, wow, this watch is good. It's a good deal. I got it. Then I had this watch and I thought like, do I like it? I wasn't so sure in the beginning. First, the strap was bad. And so I changed that. And eventually I came to like that watch a lot and appreciate it for what it is. I then dig into the history and all of the stuff of the watch. And I fell in love with it. And I thought, oh man, that's amazing, right? What you get.
Yeah.
It was flyback chronograph. So lovely stuff, right? But I fell in love afterwards, after I already got it, because I just saw a good deal and I couldn't resist. And some of my watches are like that. Then they're impulse buys, right? I have too many, let's say, these little limited edition Hodinkee Swatch System 51 watches, for example. I have 2 of them. Never wore any of them, right? But I bought them because I thought, oh, limited edition, oh, that's cool. Oh, I can wear this as a watch to, walk the dogs or lie at the pool. And then I don't do it. Yeah. Which is also an advice for new watch collectors. Stay in your budget. Don't overstretch yourself.
Avoid the hype.
And avoid the hype. There's this FOMO culture that drops these days, right? That people are saying, okay, this watch, limited edition, will sell out quickly. I bought watches that sold out in seconds.
Yeah.
And then you think, wow, I have one. This is amazing. Kurono Tokyo. You think, this is amazing. They sell out so quickly. This will go up in value. And oh my God, is this cool? And then I sat on it and I decided I don't want it. And then I couldn't sell it. I couldn't sell it. Can you believe it?
I had 7 Hodinkee limited editions.
Yes. I'm not saying they're bad.
I have 0 today. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying it's not all that it's cracked up to be. You should love a watch for what it is, as opposed to the branding or co-branding it has on the back of the case.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I do want to mention, so for me, I do have a kind of an idea. I comfortably have come to the realization that I sit within this sub 35,000 dirham price range. And as you said, I could sell a lot of these watches and trade up. Mm-hmm. But would I be comfortable wearing a Patek World Timer on my wrist? Because that's one that I recently looked at. I could sell 2-3 watches, get a solid gold Patek World Timer.
Yeah.
But am I going to wear it? Am I going to appreciate it? Am I going to like it as much as all my other watches? And as you said, the answer is no.
Yeah.
So
it's also sometimes where you have to think, is this me? Right? I mean,
is this me? Yeah.
Look at yourself and think, am I really the person who's running around with a watch for $100,000 on his wrist. Is that really me?
Is that really me? Exactly.
No.
So ultimately, when I started collecting, my first watch, I think was around $200. My first real watch, I thought. And I saw a friend of mine had a $1,000 Tag Heuer Formula One, the plastic one. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is so expensive. And then I had a friend with a $2,000 Omega Seamaster, the Bond, the blue dial. And oh my God, that's so much money. Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, I've realized whatever you feel comfortable with is what you should be paying. So you should be comfortable with your price point.
Exactly.
I do disagree. You made the thing that don't overextend yourself. I have one kind of criteria. If this is your only chance in your entire life to get some watch, don't neglect your family. But if it means taking out a loan,
yes.
Let's say go take out a loan, buy the watch. As long as it retains its value, for instance, you could sell it if you need to, pay back the loan. For instance, I generally recommend this. If your Rolex authorized dealer calls you and says, we have a Sprite for you, you're not going to lose any money taking out a loan and paying for that.
No, that's true. I mean, obviously, that's the opportunistic collection there in it. But I'm just want to say that there's always something else besides watches in your life. It's a great hobby to have. It's a very social hobby, at least for me, because I'm interacting with so many more people online, offline, in the real world and in the virtual world. It's a lovely and a big community-driven hobby. But yeah, I meant more like don't overextend yourself on a constant basis. Don't try to rattle or go through the watches like underwear. I mean, like have too many of them, right? And just go too fast, because that's also one of the things that I realized with me often.
You have to appreciate
the moment you bought a watch, you're already looking for the next one, right? Because it's like an addiction. You're looking for the.
So this is something that I want to touch on.
The hunt for the watch.
If you buy a watch and you stop looking at watches for a while, then you know you bought the right watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you bought the right watch, you just turn off. And I felt this way with the Cartier Santos just now. And last week or whenever I bought it, I haven't really looked at watches since.
Very good.
I feel content. And so now wrapping this up for our listeners, what rules do we have for them to follow?
Yeah. To follow, I think give yourself time. Give yourself time to refine your watches. Try watches. Look at watches from your friends. Maybe you can even exchange them for some time if you don't mind. If
your friend is okay with it.
Yes, exactly. Don't be scared. Sometimes to try new things.
But also at the same time, listen to yourself, because sometimes you tell yourself, I know this watch is not going to be right for me, but then you buy it anyway. And then ultimately you find out it wasn't right for me, which you knew from the very beginning.
Or you fall out of love with watches. Good way of checking if you might regret selling it, because I have a couple of watches that I really wish I didn't sell, but I did. Put the watch away, for a month or two.
Put it in a box.
Exactly. In a drawer somewhere closet. Out of sight where you don't see it. And if after a month or two you miss it, right? Or during this time, if you feel like, where is actually this watch? Then you know that it's a watch that you actually should keep. If you didn't miss it, it has to go. Definitely. So, then run. Don't walk. Sell it. The other thing is you can always fall in love with a watch just with a simple change of a strap, for example, which we have a complete episode of, right? Just recently. Yeah. And that's can reinvigorate your love to a watch. Like my Vacheron Constantin, I didn't wear it for a very long time. I put it back on a bracelet, and man, I wore it 2 days in a row. I'm just in love with it again.
Yeah. So ultimately, the biggest piece of advice is buy what you like. Yeah. Don't listen to others. Listen to yourself. If you like it, screw everyone else. Yeah. It's your watch. You're the one wearing it. that's kind of what I've realized is I don't need to pander or cater to anyone else.
Yeah.
If I like the watch,
I think
I'm
exactly.
wearing it.
It's the worst thing that I think happens in the watch collecting world is a collection review by others. Because this other person doesn't know anything about you. They see your watch collection and they assume their own interests and desires. They're saying, okay, your collection 6 watches, let's say that's all Royal Oaks and Nautiluses. And say, well, you should have an Omega Speedmaster. You should have a Rolex in your collection. You should have an annual calendar collection. If you're like Martin doesn't want an annual calendar, for example. I mean, in this case, you want one, but let's say a perpetual calendar or something, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah, of course.
You would say like, but that's not me. Or you need to have a Speedmaster, but you are a person who doesn't like chronographs. There is no point. Go with your own gut.
So I have to pay. Yeah. This is, everyone told me that buying my Cartier and buying my Reverso is wrong. They said it doesn't suit my style. It's not me.
Really?
But I said, you know what? I want it. I want the watch. And somehow I see myself as the guy wearing the Reverso.
I thought that fits you very well. I mean, your style. And
everyone else told me, no, it's a dress watch. And I said, no, it's not a dress watch. It's a tool watch, ultimately. And that's the thing is, everyone else can say it's a dress watch, but it's not. Deep down inside, I think it's a sports watch.
Yeah.
I wear it with jeans and a t-shirt. And that's how I think it should be worn, right? So no one else.
Definitely.
Yeah, no one else's opinion matters, ultimately.
Your collection has an audience of one person, and that's yourself. If you look at your collection, you smile. You look at your wrist and you smile. That's it. That's exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. And don't be too scared about prices either. You know, that's the other thing is, you're not great, but...
you remember Archie Luxury who said, it's gotta hurt.
Yeah. if you buy the watch, you have to say, oof.
Yes, exactly.
And
you
if you don't,
swallow a bit, thinking it's gotta hurt.
Exactly. So otherwise, you're not going to appreciate it. Probably, I don't know. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's a long one again, but hopefully you got some good insight into our thoughts, our methods of madness.
Yeah.
So once again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, follow us. Message us on Instagram at Lume Plotters. We'd be happy to respond. Maybe even talk about your question in a podcast.
Exactly. So last advice again from collecting. It's good to ask other people for opinions, but follow your own gut. Yeah,
exactly. But sometimes it sucks when you don't follow your own gut. And I've made the mistake of that a number of times before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. And hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye.
So, that was good. You also cut out a few times. You have the recording, right? Yep. Yeah, I can talk. Yes, please, because you cut off. In the previous one, you didn't cut off at all, but in this one, you had a few times when I could see you speak, but didn't hear you. So in this case, I will need the recording. Yeah. Oh, and I should stop this recording.